Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more slug testing, and today we've got another new shell that we've never tested. It's been highly requested by a number of you guys and I've definitely wanted to try it as well. So when I found some, I had to pick them up so we could actually see what they can do, and I have some decent hopes for them as well. But this setup can be a little picky. Some slugs it really likes and others it kind of just doesn't. So we'll see what they can give us. But as for the shells we're running today, I brought out some of these, the Brenneke K.O slugs, but these ones are the 20 gauge loads. They are a 20 gauge 2 3/4 inch 3/4 ounce slug, and the back of the box says they're moving at 1550 from the muzzle. We've tested several 20 gauge Brenneke slugs before, the Silver Slug Magnum loads, the Green Lightnings, and usually they're pretty good, but sometimes there can be a little bit of inconsistency as well, mainly with the 3-inch Magnum slugs. The Green Lightnings were pretty good, so we'll see what the KOs can do, since these are kind of Brenneke's just basic slug more than anything else. And here's what that actually looks like. Nothing special or fancy about it. You can see that nice Brenneke style shaped projectile down in there. So we'll see what the KOs can do, especially since they're a typical 3/4 ounce weight for a 20 gauge. They're not a 1 ounce slug or anything like that like some other Brenneke's loads. As for the setup we're going to run them through, I brought out my Stevens 301 20 gauge, just your basic single shot, but it seems to really work well as a slug gun as well if you find a good shell for it. It's got a 26-inch barrel on it. We're going to be running the stock improved cylinder, so nothing fancy there either. That's what a lot of slugs, including Brenneke, recommend, is just your standard improved cylinder. Up on top is a Nikon Inline XR 3-9x40, which is technically a muzzleloader scope, but it works well on this type of platform as well. So we'll see if it likes these KOs, since it can be a little picky on what slug and what weight it actually likes. But as for today's test, we're running it the same as we usually do. We're going to shoot a 3-shot group at 50 and another 3-shot group at 100, all of which will be through the chronograph. I'd love to shoot a bunch of groups for you guys, but I just don't have a ton of these to work with, and I've got some other tests I want to do with them as well. So we're working with what I've got, and it should at least give us an idea on if they're any good through this 301 or not. So let's get you guys a view of those targets, shoot our groups, and see how it all performs. Alright, so let's take a look through our velocities real quick before we look at our target. Boss claim is 1550, and from our 26-inch barrel, I believe we were seeing that, if not a little bit over it. So our high was 1603, the low was 1550, which is their claim exactly. That gave us an average of 1582, with an extreme spread of 53, and a standard deviation of 16. So at an average of 1582, we're actually seeing a little bit over their claim, which is nice because a lot of companies don't put realistic claims on the box. But here is the energy number for a 3/4 ounce slug at 1582. That's perfectly fine for your average deer hunt scenario all day long. But how accurate were they? Let's go check it out and see. Alright, so here's our target, and we definitely saw some pretty interesting results. We'll start over here on the left with our first 50-yard group, and we had a nice little area of shots going on right here. All 3 of them are almost touching, so that at 50 yards is pretty solid for a slug all day long. It gave us a 1.29-inch spread, and that is from center to center on the farthest 2 bullet holes across. So a little over an inch at 50. I'll take that all day long for your average deer hunt scenario. That's gonna work. Now we'll move over to our 100-yard group, and clearly that's not the round my scope is zeroed with or anything like that. And seeing as how far they were on the left with our 50-yard spread, I was holding this far right dot at 100 and we still grouped it over here. So that just tells you to always test your setup with the ammo you want to hunt with before you just take it out in the woods, because they can be different, especially with shotguns. But our first shot was this bullet hole here, and then we took these 2, and after seeing these 2 pretty close to each other, I thought, well, I'll go ahead and take a 4th shot. I don't think that was as me up there, I felt great about every trigger pull today. I let the barrel cool down between our groups and stuff like that, so heat should not have been a problem either. But I figured, hey, we'll take another shot, and we hit right here on the bottom edge of the paper. It's a little tricky to see, but it's just off the bottom edge of the target. So it kind of seems like it's just stringing them out a little bit here and there again. And that was part of the concern coming into it. A couple different Brenneke slugs we've tested from that 20 gauge have done this, where you can get 2 or 3 shots that are looking great, and then you'll string one out somewhere. And I think that's probably about what we saw again. Now I'll measure the first 3 original shots here, and then I'll measure the full length just to give you guys both options, and you guys can choose whichever one you want. But our first 3 shots were 4.60 inches, so a little over 4.5 inch for the first 3, which is these 3 right here. And the farthest 2 points across gave us a little bit more than 6.15. That's as far as my calipers will go, and it pretty much touches from the inside to inside on those farthest 2 bullet holes across. So it's probably 6.2, maybe 6.3, somewhere right in that range. So maybe a little bit more open than what I would like to see at 100. Is it still minute of deer out there? Yeah, probably so, but it's just a little bit of inconsistencies coming in again. And I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of people that say, well, why not test them at 75 and see if it looks any better? And we could absolutely do that. But just for testing purposes here, I want to hold things to a standard, and we've seen several slugs that do fantastic at 100 yards with that exact same setup. So for me, that's kind of the standard. Maybe we'll add some 75-yard groups in here and there. Maybe we'll come back and revisit these at 75 and see what they can do. But I think it's pretty safe to assume that about 75, you would probably have a 3 to 4 inch group, somewhere right in that nature, which obviously is plenty good enough for a deer hunt. So after seeing the 50-yard group, I was hoping for a touch more consistency at 100, but that's just the nature of the game sometimes. With a 20 gauge slug, it would seem, especially when it comes to Brenneke here recently. So a little bit of good, a little bit of maybe slightly disappointing, but 60, 70 yards, it's going to get you deer any day of the week. And I would say that's perfectly reasonable for a 20 gauge, is about that kind of range. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about that test right there? Definitely some pretty decent results at moderate ranges, but those sneaky little inconsistencies started showing up again out towards 100. More than likely, it probably has to do with these slugs just crossing the transonic barrier, going from super to subsonic, which I believe happens somewhere between 60 and 80 yards, I would say. That's probably what's messing with them just a little bit, and it may take a little bit more testing at 75 yards like we just mentioned to really dial that out. But I think that's probably pretty realistic of a range for a 20 gauge slug gun anyway. 60, 70 yards, somewhere right in there. It's gonna be just fine for you. So not terrible for results, but I might have been hoping for a touch better out towards 100 yards. But that's why you test things and see what they're capable of, because that shotgun definitely still much prefers the herder slugs out there at a little bit longer ranges. So leave all your thoughts down below. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of these 20 gauge KO slugs? And if so, what kind of results have you seen from them? Is that a combo you would ever use to deer hunt with? And if so, would you limit your range just a little bit? Or would you be fine with that kind of 5 to 6 inch area group out towards 100 yards? And are there any other slugs that you want to see me run through that 20 gauge? Let me know all that down below. I definitely think I want to try these KOs through a rifle choke and see if that dials them in just a little bit better. So that could be interesting as well. So keep an eye out for that test as well if you're going to be interested in that. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, you have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All the information will be in the description if you're interested in it. But I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.